Salute omnes. I wanted to go over these indirect statement guided notes number 3 with you, which you'll find in your packet, and you should be completing with me as we go through them. So last chapter we learned that the basic structure of indirect statement is verb of the head, and this is something you'll need to write down because it's a blank on your packet. Subject accusative plus infinitive. We've said this many times in class, so hopefully it's starting to click now. As you know from your previous study of Latin, verbs and infinitives come in different tenses. So what happens if we change the tense of the verb of the head or the infinitive? Let's look at the PowerPoint pictures to find out. So what's nice about these pictures is that they start with a direct statement. What is our direct statement? Hopefully you can see here that it says, Sextus sleeps with a doll. And you can go ahead and put that into your notes. Move this back over. All right, now we get into tricky territory. Marcus Cornelii dixit sextum cum pupa dormire. Instead of saying Marcus says to Cornelia that Sextus sleeps with a doll, which is what our indirect statements have been so far, now you can see we've actually changed the tense of the verb of the head. So now it reads, Marcus said to Cornelia that Sextus slept with a doll. And I'll explain why I changed sleep to slept in a little bit. All right. The next picture we've seen before, but again, we've changed the tenses a little bit here. So Marcus said to his other friends that Sextus had slept with a doll. You see what I did here. So now we have dixit, perfect tense, and we had encountered also a perfect infinitive, a perfect active infinitive. But I changed the tense of the perfect active infinitive to had slept when I put it in the indirect statement. We'll have to talk about why that is in a little bit here. And our last sentence is Marcus said to Euclides that Sextus would sleep with a doll. Again, when we've had present tense verbs of the head, like dicit, we could just translate dormitorum esse as will sleep. But now that we're moved into the past, we're going to translate dormitorum esse as would sleep. So hopefully in the examples above, you notice that a special relationship exists between the verb of the head and the infinitive. So a special relationship exists between dixit and dormivisse, between dixit and dormitorum esse, and between dixit and dormire. In picture 2, we see that when the sentence uses a present tense infinitive, it indicates that the action in the indirect statement is going on when? Oh, at the same time, hopefully you said at the same time as the action of the verb of the head. In sentence 3, which you can see here, we see that when the sentence uses a perfect tense infinitive, it indicates that the action in the indirect statement, typo there, maybe you probably can't fix that on yours, it indicates that the action in the indirect statement happened before that of the main verb, or the verb of the head. Right? Marcus said to the other students that Sextus had slept with a doll. That's why I did that, as you may have noticed. And lastly, number 4, when we see that when a sentence uses a future tense infinitive, it indicates that the action of the indirect statement is going on after that of the main verb. This is confusing a little bit. But if you think about it, if Marcus said to Euclides that Sextus will sleep with a doll, it kind of makes sense, but we're saying we're making it past tense in the indirect statement. So we want to, and we're making it future. The future tense just comes after the past. So it doesn't necessarily come after the present, but it definitely comes after the past, and that's why we used the word would sleep instead of will sleep. A little bit tricky. Something to keep in mind. The important idea to take away from all of this is that a present infinitive always means same time as verb of the head. A perfect infinitive always means the time before, and you can cross out as the verb of the head. And a future infinitive always means the time after the verb of the head. And then it says, before we practice, let's look at a timeline of our tenses to help you understand the time relationships. Mine isn't showing up on here, so I'm going to go ahead and switch to a picture here. So as you can see, this is a little bit confusing, but hopefully it makes some sense to you. So we have present tense here, right, for your verb of the head. Is or is verbing. Future, will verb. Imperfect, was verbing, and it goes over a long time period, so it's got brackets instead of just a fixed point in time, right? It's continuous past action. And then perfect, verbed, and pluperfect, had verbed. Now, you see your timeline for infinitives. When you have a perfect tense infinitive, you use the tense before the verb of the head. A present tense infinitive, you use the same tense as the verb of the head. And the future tense infinitive, you use a tense after the verb of the head. I think the best way to jump into this is to do some examples together. So first we're going to label and then translate the following sentences, paying close attention to the tenses of the verb of the head and the infinitive. So looking at schemos, what tense do we think schemos is? Well, first let's identify it as a verb of the head. And let's identify puerum as our subject accusative and scribere as our infinitive. All right. So going back to schemas, what tense do you think it might be? Hopefully you said present tense. We know that the boy writes a letter. So this follows the rule, though we may not have realized it when we were doing it before. Follows the rule of the verb of the head tense versus the infinitive tense. If the verb of the head is present tense, the infinitive is present tense, it's happening at the same time. We know happens at the same time that the boy writes a letter, right? We are knowing that the boy writes a letter, you could say. All right. Now we have a new sentence, but it's really the same sentence in different tenses, right? So we can still identify scivimus as our verb of the head, puerum as our subject accusative, and scribere as our infinitive. Please label them just so that I know that you know what we're talking about. I'm not going to label them here in the interest of time. But what tense then is scivimus? Hopefully you said that it's perfect tense. And then we translate it, we knew that the boy. Now we have another present tense infinitive. And what did we say about present tense infinitives? Oh yeah, they happen at the same time as the verb of the head. So the verb of the head is knew, which is perfect tense. So we have to make this perfect tense too, or past tense. We knew that the boy wrote the letter. And this could be the or it doesn't really matter. Okay, now we get into a trickier territory. We know present tense, we're back to present tense, that the boy, so scripsisse, let's go back up and look at what it's doing in terms of its tense. A perfect infinitive is a scripsisse. It always means that the time before the verb of the head. The time before the verb of the head. So know is present tense, so we're just going to say past tense, right? Simple past. We know that the boy wrote the letter. So just to recap, we know that schemos is present tense, and then scripsisse is perfect active infinitive, right? So because this is present tense, and the perfect active infinitive we looked up and we said it happens before the verb of the head, but it always happens directly before the verb of the head. So that means present tense verb of the head means that a perfect infinitive will make it simple perfect tense in English. We know that the boy wrote the letter. This may make more sense when I talk to you about the next sentence. Sentence 4. We know that the boy, and then we're going to finish this. Scripsisse epistulam. How are we going to finish that? What tense? Oops, I'm sorry, this should be we knew. We knew that the boy. What tense are we going to make scripsisse? Because skivimus is perfect tense, and scripsisse is also perfect tense. So how do we make scripsisse happen before the verb of the head? We knew that the boy, we can't just say wrote the letter, because that's the same time. We knew that the boy wrote the letter, so that we would be expecting a present tense infinitive here, and we don't see that. So we're going to have to change scripsisse in its translation to pluperfect. We knew that the boy had written the letter. Do you see how that happened? Okay, a little tricky. 2 more and then we're done. We know, present tense again. It's going to put a number there, that's fine. We know that the boy, and then scripturum esse, it just has to happen after the main verb, right? So future. We know that the boy will write the letter. And last but not least, scivimus puerum epistulam scripturum esse. We know that the boy, we knew, I keep doing that. We knew that the boy, and again, it has to happen after the verb of the head, right? So we knew that the boy would write the letter. All right. Hopefully this guided notes video helps you or at least write down the correct information and start thinking about the tense of the infinitive in relationship to the tense of the verb of the head. Tomorrow in class, we'll jump into the next couple pages in your packet and we'll do some real practice with this. Walete.